Fillmore is reopening.
It is?
Yeah, it's of course now. When you go there, you'll be amazed how small it seems. You know, it's like it's a club now. It'll be a club with.
When's it reopening?
I'm supposed to play the opening, although I don't know whether I am or not anymore because I'm not sure about my schedule. But it's opening sometime later in the year. And it's already had a couple of false reopenings, but now I think it's actually going to open, and it's like I say, it's functioning as a big club rather than a small concert hall.
I wanted to start about that music video because we have pictures of it. Okay, how did you like doing that for MTV?
It was a lot of fun. It was a chance to work with old friends, Garcia and the people at Colossal Pictures. It's one of those things. I love to work with Bay Area people when possible, you know, and this was a chance to do that, and everybody was excited about it. Everybody enjoyed the idea, and the execution of it turned out to be almost as much fun, except for the cold. The cold was extremely cold. Except for that part of it, it was fun to do. The audience enjoyed it, we enjoyed it, and it worked really well for us as well.
As you said earlier, it was kind of an interesting statement about you had never really had a big hit that made it on the charts-wise. This is the first?
This is it. That's the first one, yeah.
But what about all the ones that are so well known?
Well, they're hits to our fans, but they're not. They never were hits in the regular world. You know what I mean? We never were a top 40 band, and we never had that kind of success. Records in terms of record sales. So this is our first year where we were actually, you know, a modest success in the big world of grown-up records. You know.
What's it like?
Not much different, really. I mean, because we've been steadily selling more and more tickets every year than almost anybody, you know. So we've had tremendous success as a live performing, act, you know, for all this time, and that's just been getting more intense in the last few years. This has just possibly put a little English on that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we're more successful now than we expected to be, which, interestingly enough, is a whole new level of problems, really.
Problems?
Yeah, sure, because you have, now we have the problem of too many people showing up for a show, for example. And in some of the places that we play, it really crowds the local environment. I mean, if you get 15,000 people trying to get into a place, you know,
changes the whole concept.
Absolutely. And some of the places we play are remote enough and small enough areas, parts of the country where the addition of 20,000 audience members is significant. You know, it's a significant number of people over the normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a big group.
Pretty soon the roads are crowded, and you know, a lot happens. But there are lots of problems along those lines that we would never have anticipated. But luckily enough, this has been sort of slow. It's been slow enough that we've been able to adjust to it as it happens. It's certainly not freaky or anything.
Well, what about your concerts? As you said, you have this enormous popularity playing live. Why is that, do you think?
Oh, geez. You'd have to ask somebody that comes to the shows, you know.
You've been doing this on the road, your shows on the road, a long time.
For as long as I can remember, no kidding.
And you like it still.
And even longer. Oh, yeah. Well, playing with the Grateful Dead is not like, we don't, a lot of groups, okay, here's the showbiz formula, folks. Here it comes. What you do is you make a record, you perform your record on stage. You know, you tour and try to make an effort to sell as many records as possible, and you perform your record. Now, some people can play the same music every night over and over again and maybe not even get bored by it, but for me, I hate to play anything the same twice ever. You know, I mean, in fact, I'm almost constitutionally unable to do it, you know. It's just, it isn't fun for me, and luckily everybody else in the band, the Grateful Dead, is like me in that regard. So, with us, it's a matter of our problem is to keep ourselves interested, and that means to keep changing. So that means that every night we play differently, and we play a different show. We play the material differently. We don't do a show as such, really. What we have is a large repertoire of about pushing 200 songs when we really are working a lot, and we just go on stage and play.
And you like that?
It's the only way we could do it and keep it interesting. And also, I think the audience comes rather than going to one show and say, well, we've seen the Grateful Dead this year, they'll go to 5 shows and realize after the 5th show, hey, none of these shows are the same. There's no 2 of them that are alike. And if you really want to see the Grateful Dead, you have to go to all the shows. You know, I mean, and so the people who are the most diehard fans make an effort to go to every show, or at least as many as they can possibly get to. And we try to make that. I mean, that's what we're doing. You know, that's it. Because to go on the road and play mechanically is sort of to cheapen this whole experience. And we're interested in providing something that isn't just a live version of a record. You know, we want it to be more dynamic. We want it to be more exciting. We want it to be unexpected. We want there to be surprises there. We want the people to feel they're participating in it. You know, so it's like, and if you approach music from that point of view, it works. All those things work for you. You know, the audience becomes a part of the music, and it becomes a very rich experience. If you decide that what you're going to be is a sort of a jukebox, then pretty soon you get bored, and being on the road starts to get to be a real drag, and people complain about it and stuff like that, and it makes it hard to survive. So this survivability is a factor when you've been playing as long as we have. I mean, pace really counts. Mm-hmm. So being out there for the right amount of time and doing something that stays interesting, that really is key.
When you started this out, did you think you'd all be together this long and keep doing this and still have the success you're having? Or how did you start?
We didn't really think about it. We didn't think about it that way, really. And we thought about it in terms of, this seems like it'd be a real great way to have some good times, you know. And the thing of doing something with people that you really like, and doing something that you enjoy doing with people that you really like doing it with, you know, okay, that's a great place to start anything. And as far as where it was going to go or where it was going to lead us, we really didn't have any plans. I mean, like everybody who's in the music business, you hope your first record, you know, you say, okay, this is the one, this is going to be it, you know. And we never did have that kind of recording success, you know, so that big flash of success never really came onto us. But on the other hand, we've defined ourselves in our own terms, you know, and what we do, and even a little section of the American population, you know, has this definition which is kind of open-ended and kind of far out, really. And it's been surprising. We couldn't have known it, but at the same time, it's not surprising in a way, you know.
Well, a lot of the music that came out of the 60s that was filled with social messages and change and all of that. Do you think that music is a force in that? And is it still happening, that kind of...
Well, I'll tell you, we've always really avoided expressing any particular message, you know, with our music. I mean, we've made an effort to make it as ambiguous as possible so that people could create their own sense, you know, and hope to... If we're standing for something, we hope that the whole gesture says it rather than the individual songs. You know what I mean? So our songs have purposely not been focused in a topical sense. However, in the last year or so, or a few years, we've got a few tunes that you could describe as topical in a way. It doesn't seem to hurt anything. You know, a good song is still a good song. That's the way I feel about it. And if a good song talks about something that is current, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Although I personally have sort of fought that for a long time.
Well, let's talk about the Rex Foundation. You want to bring that out? That a lot of people don't know about the charity work that you all do. How did you get involved with that? Well,
whenever you're in a public position, people ask you to do benefits. So benefits have always been part of what we do. Okay, it used to be people would say, would you do this benefit? And we would say, okay, sure, it seems like a good cause. We'll do the benefit, but we want to see what happens to the money. We want to see whether this actually works for anybody. And we also want it to be produced properly. In other words, if we're going to have people pay money for tickets to see us, we want the show to be good. So that, since most of the benefits that we used to do, sometimes the show was not good. Sometimes the way that where the money went and how the whole thing came down was not good. Sometimes it was not satisfying for us, and we felt we were burned, really. But we didn't have the time necessarily to check out each situation, you know what I mean? But we wanted to do the right thing, you know, because there are things that come up that definitely are part of your life, and you as a human being, you have concern about people who are homeless and people who are hungry and people who are not being treated well, and anything that you can do to help seems you want to do it. I mean, that's the instinct, that's the drive, right? Okay, so what we say, okay, how can we address this idea with a little more focus? How can we focus harder on this and be a little bit more effective? And so we started toying with the idea of, well, why don't we create a nonprofit organization of our own, which would be like a feeder into whatever causes that we individually uncover. We have a preference for local and sort of close to the bone, low profile, direct action kind of things, rather than big charity. We don't do much that contributes to big charity. So we go for the things that are feeding people somewhere, you know, that are providing health stuff, you know, slow profile things where like $1,000 really matters to somebody. That kind of stuff, local community from inside our immediate area out, you know, sort of in concentric circles. We're looking to, you know, to be active in ways that make sense, and also we're hoping to transmit some of that responsibility. That is to say that now it makes it easier for us to focus on each one of the things, you know, because the way it works, the Rex Foundation is each of us, if we hear about something that says, like, Phil has these 3 or 4 young composers in England that the Rex Foundation supports. So he heard about these guys through some channel of his own, you know, his own communication in the world. He heard these guys, and their music is far out. It's not getting any support at all. It really needs something that needs to be supported, you know. It's something that we could do without much pain and without much effort, and it seemed to fit right in. So that represents one sort of thing, like arts, and that, you know. I have a preference for stuff that's like the mayor's homeless trip in San Francisco. We all have different orientation. You know, there are things that are interesting to me. Mickey's got things that are, you know, the guys in the band all have different interests. And so, and also in our organization as a whole, at large, there are people who say, hey, I heard about this, seeing this, they're feeding people over in Berkeley, or they're providing places for people to park their buses, or, you know what I mean, all this other low profile things.
Do you get a personal satisfaction from knowing this?
Well, no, I'm not trying to get anything out of it. What I'm trying to do is make it is to create a kind of a model for how you can effectively support something. You know, it just depends on how strongly you feel about these things. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think everybody needs to be involved in volunteer work or something like that. I'm not really, you know. All we're really doing is raising money, and then hopefully the money does some good work, and sometimes we're attracting attention to a cause that, if it needs volunteer people, maybe some of the people who are deadheads or part of our audience can find some meaning in working for some of these groups, you know. So sometimes it's things like that, you know. Sometimes there are things that we're directly involved in, like Camp Winter Rainbow, where some of our kids go there, you know. So there's a definite personal and direct involvement, you know. I mean, there's all kinds of, in a way, it's self-interest, but it's kind of enlightened self-interest, you know what I mean? It's just, we're just trying to make if possible, to improve the community the way the community's improved us, if possible, to feed some of that back. So, you know.
Well, there's a lot of people who are successful and who have a lot of money don't do that, so that it's nice.
Right, well, they ought to.
They ought to,
yeah,
that's right.
They should. Right, well, we're not doing it for promotion, you know, we're doing it to help people, you know, if possible. Sometimes, and sometimes it is our people. So if our people are impacting on the community, we definitely want to do something about that, because it's in the truest sense of the word, it's our problem, you know. I mean, if there are people, and sometimes that's the case, but that's only one area of it, you know.
What about your benefit concerts that you do?
Well,
is that all for the Rex Foundation?
Yeah, they mostly are. That's the way. What we do is try to raise a certain amount each year, by doing a series of benefit concerts that are all just into Rex. Then the Rex Foundation then it's a feeder, right? Because some of them only need a little bit of money. I mean, some of these organizations really only need seed money. They don't need a huge amount of money, and that's not what they're looking for. They just need a little bit, and those are the kind that are, well, there's all kinds of. There's a lot of payback in this stuff. Sometimes it's neat to see a project actually happen and finish up, and something really nice come out of it at the end. You know, so sometimes that's the payoff.
What's the music scene like here? How's it been for you living here?
Oh, it's been great. It's incredible. I mean, I'm from here. My father was a musician in the Bay Area. I'm a musician in the Bay Area. You know, and I think this is a great place to be, just to live. There's a lot of stimulation here. There's a lot of new ideas here. This is the place that consistently takes chances where the rest of the country is dragging its feet. It's exciting, you know. It still is, and the music scene here still keeps growing, and which is a tribute to it, because there is no music business in the Bay Area. There really isn't. You know, the record companies are in L.A. and in Nashville and in New York. They're not in San Francisco. You know, so considering that this is not an industry capital, the music scene here is incredibly protein. You know, there's all kinds of. I mean, on every level too. So it's. And the live music scene here is dynamite. That's another thing that's neat about it. There's lots of places to perform. There's lots of levels at which to perform. And, you know, this is a great place to be. Yeah.
What about a lot of people who came through the 60s and early 70s, burned out, didn't stay creative, didn't keep together for whatever reasons, sometimes dropped out completely. Some of that from just burnout and drugs or whatever reasons.
Absolutely.
How is it that you've all been able to stay creative and keep going?
Oh, we burn out, too. I mean, it's just part of the cycle. If you wait around long enough, eventually you'll burn out on almost anything. But then eventually you'll revive too. You know, I think it also depends on who you are and what you're really about. I mean, if your interest in the music business is to make money and to get famous, that's easy to burn out. You know, that's pretty superficial stuff. If your interest is that you really love music and your heart is in it, then I think you can live a life being excited about it.
What would you say to kids now who are
you kids
out
there
who are faced with, even though the 60s and 70s had a lot of experimentation, a lot of drugs, some of the drugs on the market today are a lot more insidious, like crack and things like that. What would you say to these kids?
Well, I would say that the experimentation has already been done, kids. You know, I mean, I think a lot of the news is in. You know, certain things are definitely going to burn your brain out. PCP is not good. Crack is not good. A lot of drugs will definitely kill you. You know, this stuff is known. It's not a matter of experimentation anymore. That's what I'm saying. It's true the 60s and 70s were experimental, but there's a lot of bodies back there. You know, if you want to go back and check and see what happened, it's there for anybody who has eyes to see. The thing is you just have to be careful nowadays. You have to keep your eyes open and be smart. And that's true of everything. That's true of all of life. I mean, now it's crowded in on every level of life, really. It's not just drugs or sex. It's everything. You know, it's like something awful is lurking at you from every corner. You know, and so you just have. I mean, that's the way it is now. You know, so the 80s and 90s there are new plagues on the earth. You know, and you just have to be careful. You always did have to be careful, but you have to be more careful now. But I don't think that's any news to the kids. Kids nowadays know that stuff. You know, I'm not really that worried about. I think kids are pretty smart.
You had a recent brush with death. I know you were in General Hospital. You had a diabetic coma, is that
right? Yes.
And I understand the hospital was just flooded with letters.
I got some amazing mail. Yeah, I really did. It came on so slowly, you know, that I just laid down one day and didn't get up. It's that simple. Not really, not ill, you know. I felt really tired. I felt just amazingly tired. And dehydrated, really dry.
They say that can have terrible consequences.
Yeah,
dehydrated. I
yeah.
never knew that either.
Yeah, it was. They told me lots of awful stories about me after I came out of it, and I lost about 4 or 5 days there. They're gone. I don't know what happened, and that was during the time I was actually in a coma. It's kind of, but it's the experience to me is like something. It's like a complete meltdown. I mean, I really had to start everything over again. Although everything came back pretty fast, but I really had to do everything at least once. I still have some serious scars. I notice it. I don't think other people do so much, but I don't have the access that I used to. That experience of knowing that you know a word or an idea, a concept or an idea, and you have it right on the tip of your tongue, and you know that you know it, and you can't get it. Right. That happens to me about 4 or 5 times a day now, and sometimes I can have the same idea, and lose it like 5 or 6 days in a row. You know what I mean? Or a name. Sometimes it's somebody's name, something like that. So there's like these little places, but it all eventually finds its way back. I don't think I've sustained any serious, completely permanent damage. And then there's a certain kind of dropout too in my memory too, which is weird, a little weird. There are times that I don't that are gone. There's certain things that are gone. People have talked to me about something. When was that? I don't remember it.
Have you changed your lifestyle? Are you slower? Are you how has it changed?
Yeah, I've slowed down a little. And of course, everybody is watching my health, with a microscope, So that that's.
Mm-hmm. What about attitudes from a mental perspective? Having, you said it got your attention.
Yeah, it got my attention.
Well, what did it do when it got your attention?
It made it easier for me to focus on the things that I really wanted to accomplish. It had that kind of attention getting, the thing of, oh gosh, I've been wasting time here. It's look at all these things that I almost have done, but I don't really quite have them done. I really should do them. So it really fired up that. I got a lot done in the next year or so. Now I'm starting to slow down a little. Everything's getting diffuse again,
But what were some of the things that you wanted to do? Was it
the
album?
Yeah, like the album, stuff. I mean, these are things that some of them have been dragging around for, years and a long time. Nothing of any real consequence. But it's more the thing of an attitude towards one's work. I felt like it mostly is that thing of you never know. You could go at any moment, so you might as well just try to crowd as much as you can possibly get into your life, at least in terms of accomplishing what you hope to accomplish. You might as well let out all the stops. So, I mean, in a way, it's liberating. In a way, it's... I don't recommend it, Let me start by saying that. I don't recommend near-death experiences as a way to motivate yourself. And, I'm sure there's better ways to motivate yourself, but for some of us, I think maybe you need something really radical at a certain point of your life to kind of kick you into that... whatever is going to be, the home stretch, say, how whatever,
when you say you want to accomplish certain things, what do you want to be known for? What do you want people to say? Jerry Garcia, now, bump level.
Jeez, I don't know. I've never thought about it in those terms. I think I would like to be known as a guy who had a pretty good time while I was here, I don't care to be, I find it cumbersome to think that there's going to be a me here after I'm gone, in terms of, I don't care if my works survive, or anything like that. I'm not really that attached to my own work. And in fact, that is sort of embarrassing in a way. It's kind of like, I'd kind of like to take every trace of me with me when I go, so that everybody can reinvent some other person that would be me, you know what I mean? I'd hate to fill up that notch, because it's myth, it's it could be anybody, so somebody else should be that person.
What about those fans? You have some people who, you know, they're very avid fans. I don't know of any other group or performer that has the dedication that you have.
Yeah, we've got some wonderful fans. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, to me, it's been an amazing surprise ever since the day that there were more of them than us. You know, there was a time when we used to play in bars and there was more of us on the bandstand than there was in the audience. You know, that went on for a pretty long time. You know. And then one day it all changed, you know, and ever since then there's been more of them than there has been of us, and ever since then I don't know why, you know. What is it that makes people like somebody's music? I don't know why, you know. It's one of those wonderful mysteries. It's the reason why every record isn't a hit record. You know, nobody knows that. Nobody knows what makes something popular or something a hit, or why everybody will like something, or it isn't known, and that's neat.